This is the Inside Track with William Hill here at Aintree. Randox Grand National Festival is well underway. We're going to be looking ahead to some Friday races, but most of all, Leonna Mayor Sam Twiston-Davies, we're going to be looking ahead to the Grand National, the world's most famous steeplechase, the world's most famous horse race. How excited are we?
Very. As you say, it's one of those, the boring statement of the race that stops the nation. I don't hear from people, hopefully it's not because they don't like me, for 364 days and then the morning of the National the day before, have you got any tips? You know, because it's the race that everybody's interested in, everybody wants to back a big prize winner, as it were, and of course over the years we've had so many of those, it's possible to do it.
When you're a jockey, AP, do you walk in here just an inch or two taller on Grand National Day?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing, you know, when you come for the first time, like you think you're actually lucky enough to compete and ride in the Grand National. It's an amazing thing. I'm from a non-racing family of 4 sisters, 1 brother, never rode a horse in their lives. I can remember my granny back in Last Suspect in 1985, 50 to 1. You know, that was kind of my first real thing of remembering the Grand National. And then you think, yeah, you want to ride in it, but then you've had a few goes. You want to win.
And you remember the famous story about Last Suspect, trained by Captain Tim Forster, one of 3 winners, ridden by Hugh Davis. And what were Captain Forster's instructions to Hugh Davis?
I think it was just get round him, was it?
Keep remounting.
Yeah,
keep remounting.
Keep remounting.
That's how little confidence he had. And that, of course, is the great beauty of the race. The racing's got so much better. There's so many distractions between now and the Grand National itself on Saturday. I mean, after all, we've already had spectacular sport on Thursday afternoon. Constitution Hill and Shishkin beating Ahoy Senor, Leonna.
Yeah, it was amazing. I have to say I did back Ahoy Senor, so I was a little bit disappointed in that result. But, you know, an unbelievable start to the week for Nicky Henderson, of course. I mean, he's so great with these horses, keeps bringing them back year after year. And I actually said to the guy who was stood with about Constitution Hill, I don't know if I dare say the words, gets a bit boring, but it's one of those because you just expect him to go and do what he did. I mean, he didn't win by the margins he usually does today, and it was interesting. At one point, Nicky looked like whether he was getting a breather into him, and they started closing, and you thought, oh, what's going to happen here? And of course, he just did what he does. Nico had a little look around and continued on with his life. And when he did his lap of honour in the paddock, he just looked unbelievable, didn't he? He was just so relaxed, moseying around. I mean, he is such a great horse.
Cracking horse. I don't suppose you found it too boring, did you?
No, you know, the thing about it is, Nick, you know, you don't know whether, you know, you watch him from sort of the second last to last, and he got a bit away on the others, and then was Nico taking it easy, was the horse taking it easy? You don't have an easy race winning a champion hurdle, you know, that's the other side of it, you know, and when you're a jump horse and you're getting trained for the Cheltenham Festival, the lead up to it and the build up, you know, you want to make sure he wins the champion hurdle. I'm not saying it's an afterthought, but you have a hard race at Cheltenham, and maybe he just wasn't at his brilliant best, but look, he's still done it. It was a bit of I said it on TV, it was a bit of a Floyd Mayweather performance as a boxer. It was just go out, get the job done, you know, take your money and go home, you know what I mean, without really blowing you away, but never looked like in any doubt that he was ever going to win, did it? So.
Now, should we get your tipping brains properly limbered up by setting you a decent challenge? So Friday afternoon, about the 2 hardest races, the William Hill Handicap Hurdle and the Topham Chase. We're going to now try and make them look easy, aren't we, Leonna? So you can have first go at this handicap hurdle.
I don't know if I want to, because I'm going against Campron, who I think AP fancies quite a lot. Look, I think we've seen lots of kind of, especially here, and I know at Cheltenham, we had quite a lot of strong travelling horses going from the front, and actually the pace holding up quite a bit. So I think that's got to be a worry for a few horses. But off your Rocco, I thought last time out he was ridden so coldly, and I just don't think he was really put into the race. I was really disappointed with him. He's a lot better off now with Camprons, and I just thought from a weight point of view, I really wouldn't be surprised to see him show up for Gordon. He's that kind of horse, you know, he'll just spring the big one. I think he's a huge price as well. I think when I last looked, he was 28 to 1. He was a massive price. I think there'd be much bigger shocks in a race like that to see him placed. I think they'll go plenty quick enough, and I think he'd be one of the ones that'll come and pick up the pieces.
Was Campron a bit unlucky not to win at Cheltenham, do you think? Maybe saw a sight at the front a bit soon?
Yeah, a little unlucky, Nick. I think what he'll really appreciate here is it seems the ground, I think, will be a little better for him as well. He's a horse that I always thought improved with racing as well, and he was a little disappointing over fences, and then the race at Cheltenham was kind of his target. He went to Punchestown after being placed in Cheltenham last year and won a really competitive handicap hurdle. I think he'll be better for the run in Cheltenham. I really do. You know, I think he's a horse that might even make it up another grade. I don't know that he has the real chance. As I said, he went chasing at the beginning of last year. It didn't really work out for him. The natural route was to try and win a good handicap with him. I think he'll be able to do that in Aintree. I think this will be his place. Better ground, flat track.
Just
Plenty going for him.
not that far off a really good class horse, Camprond. And having heard that, I'm kind of almost reluctant to give a tip, but I'll do anyway. Especially if a bit of rain gets into the ground on Friday. Good risk at all for me for Sam Thomas. Ran well in Camprond's race, but very, very wide. I think that horse could run well at a bit of a price. At the Topham, AP, let you have first go at the Topham.
I thought Burrows Saint could run well. Ran well in the Grand National. Finished fourth. He unseated last year.
Didn't quite stay, did he?
Don't know if he really stayed. Obviously, the way that he did unseat last year. Look, he's trained by Willie Mullins, Arthur Flying. The other one I thought maybe was Alredoto. Paul Nichols is, I think the horse probably a little less exposed and seemed to be improving with each run. Was even more, I think when they rode him positively. So he might be one. Burrows Saint, I think, would be a pretty safe one.
I know Paul Nichols still thinks Alredoto's got a little bit in hand of the handicapper. Leonna, is there anything that really knocked you between the eyes here?
I've got another one at a big price.
Oh, I like it.
The only problem is that it's a horse that AP would know plenty about, I'm sure, so I can make all these statements and AP will then say I'm wrong. I think...
After Sir de Burley win the challenge, I'll never say you're wrong.
Okay.
So the proof is in the pudding.
I think on his runs, if you just look at his kind of 2.5 to 3 runs with a bit of juice in the ground, which we might not get now, but at the time when we're doing these notes, I thought we would, so we'll see. I think he's quite a strong travelling horse. I think they'll go quick enough for him. I assume they skip Cheltenham. JP.
Who is he?
Skip Cheltenham with this in mind. Phoenix Way.
Phoenix Way.
I think the boss would be pretty happy if you're right.
He ran disappointingly last time out. He pulled the front shoe off, which we all know can be a major issue, a front shoe. Back shoe I'm not so bothered about, but front shoe, when they pull them or they spread a plate, that's an issue. And they said after the race he pulled a front shoe, and I thought, okay, big excuse. So I was happy with that. Handicap's giving him a couple of pound back. I thought he had a real chance. I'd like more juice in the ground for him. If it keeps drying up, that slightly puts me off. But again, decent price.
You are sober, aren't you?
Yes.
Just
Do
checking.
you know what? He was a horse that we actually thought had lots of potential, and I'm not sure he ever really fulfilled it. So, winning the top would be pretty good time.
This is going to be some triumph if Phoenix Way wins.
It will. We won't ever get asked again our opinions, Nick.
No. And
rightly
quite
so.
sensibly
And
enough,
rightly so.
so many of you will just be thinking, we've been telling you this for years. Phoenix Way,
Burrows in.
Burrows Saint, final orders for me. Those are our final orders just for the time being. Two things Sir Anthony McCoy likes most: pretending to be a film star and watching himself back. So we combine,
Okay, you're right, Nick.
those two great desires. And what's more, he was able to do it in the company of his great friend Barry Geraghty and the brilliant Leonna Mayor. Just take a look at this. This is 2010 all over again.
We've brought two of the best jump jockeys of all time together, Sir Anthony McCoy and Barry Geraghty, to relive some of their amazing memories throughout the years. 2010 AP Grand National. Only took you a couple attempts to win one. There was
15th this was.
yeah.
Just the 15th.
I didn't want to pick.
You need
I
to
didn't want to
practice.
pick on you too much.
Oh dear.
There was plenty of horses, which I'm sure there was many years, that you could have ridden this year. One of them never got past the tape.
And they're off and racing, and King John's Castle has refused to leave the starting area, so casualty before the race has really begun.
Someone asked JP after the Grand National, "Oh, what about King John's Castle?" He said, "Well, I'm sure if he didn't want to start, he wasn't going to finish, that's for sure." So the others, Camp by Time was the other one of John Joe's, and I was actually in the hotel on the Thursday morning, and John Joe rang me and says, "Which horse are you riding in the Grand National?
Yeah, why
Which
did
one
you
of
choose
mine?"
him then?
And I says, "Do you know what, John Joe, Camp by Time won a race in Cheltenham on New Year's Day, a good handicap chase." And I said, "You know what, there's nothing between them, toss a coin."
As they cut the corner now at the canal, and over it but going wide was Connor Castle to Black Appalachia in second. Hello Bud was over in third. Over in fourth came Ballyholland. All the leaders again are safely over, but down at the back of the field is Can't Buy Time. He has gone at the canal. They take Valentine.
And there was a horse of Willie Mullins called Arbor Supreme. He was Andy Post's favourite kind of in February time for the Grand National. And I can remember JP asked me about why wouldn't I ride Arbor Supreme, and I said, whatever chance I have of winning the Grand National, I have less chance if I can't get him around. I said, and I don't think I have the ability to get Arbor Supreme around.
As they head towards the chair, it's Connor Castle who will lead them from Black Appalachia. Watching them over it, a bad mistake there. Arbor Supreme is the one that's gone at the chair.
Anyway, this day, don't push it. I had got a really good ride off him, even though he'd fallen in an Arkle. He was a horse that was keen on minding himself. He was quite intelligent and quite sure-footed and quite nimble.
Don't Push It is well placed just behind the leaders on the outside of State of Play.
But going out here on the second circuit, you know, at this point in Grand National, I always thought about getting around and getting a clear passage, and then you start picking your way. Look, you can set off with the idea of following the right horses and the lads that have experience, and you know, whether it be
and you
Ruby or
often
Barry
can
or
find
someone.
you find yourself behind the one you didn't want to be behind. As much as you can try and plan it.
And the thing about, Barry will tell you, the thing about riding over these fences up until this point, you know, is however good a jockey, you need a horse to have a good brain, be very bright at looking after himself, because there's times as a jockey you go to a fence and you think you're right and you do the wrong thing at the last minute.
Or they do something
so
else.
he needs to be able to look after himself a little bit, and that was the one thing that, look, see, there we go. That's why I said that, because I squeezed him and he put down and looked back at me as if to say, leave the jumping to me. And
when
so,
they seem like they're going very quick, for example, in a national, in these, you know, long staying races, how far into the race do you start? You know, if they're going too quick, how far back do you dare be? If you know, because if you give them too much rope, and then you never get there.
I was always the opinion that just don't get too ahead of yourself, because it's the Grand National. Don't confuse
You're
it.
taking fence by fence.
Fence by fence.
Tony McCoy getting closer on Don't Push It as they go over the canal turn, and it's Black Appalachie who's out in front by 3 lengths now from Hello Bird and Big Fella Thanks. They go towards Valentine's.
Black Appalachie in front over Valentine's from Hello Bud and Big Fella Thanks. Don't Push It, White Cap up into 4th.
It was probably only from sort of here, the canal turn, that I kind of thought, I don't think anything is going to be coming from behind me. I thought I'd be very surprised if someone's cool enough to be sat behind me in a Grand National, cantering behind me, because I actually felt like I was going well.
Black Appalachie goes towards the next, just ahead from Hello Bud and Big Fella Thanks. The purple jacket down the inner. Don't Push It is next. They're clear from State of Play and Comply or Die, Connaught Castle, then Snowy Morning as they make their way on towards the next.
I actually started to think here at one point, probably the first time in the whole race I started to think is, I remember watching Richard and Woody and Minnehaha, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting on him, and I thought, if I ever get the chance in a Grand National, I'm going to try and wait, because if he can't keep going from the elbow to the winning post, he ain't going to win the Grand National. He's not meant to win the Grand National, you know. So
and that's why it's all about waiting, isn't it? Like there you are, if you're going well, but if you're going well, you just stay.
And it's Black Appalachie who leads the national field from Hello Bud, but Don't Push It, and AP stalking in behind with Barry Geraghty and Big Fella Thanks, and this group of 4 are clear with 2 to jump.
I must admit, when I was coming to the second last, I did think it's a matter of just be close to the ones beside you, but don't really commit. And even though Black Appalachie actually stuck at it well and I was beside him, and I was nursing there, but I was trying not to go, even though that's never been my strong point, because I liked
non-committal.
I liked committing.
Tony McCoy senses his national weight may be about to end as Don't Push It looms alongside and leads the last at the national.
I knew from here if he could, you know, if he got to the elbow and if he couldn't win from there, then it wasn't really going to be my fault. But I always did this thing, I've said it many times, Leonna, that much better jockeys than me never won the Grand National, you know.
Don't Push It in front, ears pricked, idling. Black Appalachie trying to preserve the run up the inside, but Tony McCoy, the winning most national hunt rider of all time, has waited a long time to land his first John Smith's Grand National. First all rounds, Tony McCoy, JP McManus, John Joe O'Neill. Don't Push It won the national.
So I got a lot of fulfilment and
relief,
yeah, a lot of relief, because you know, you go away or you're hanging out with other lads, and you know, so someone says, "Oh, you're a jockey," and all that, and the first thing they'll nearly say, "Did you win the Grand National?"
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that
career defining.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you think it didn't make me a better jockey, but I'm pretty happy that I won.
All right then, from Saturday night at the movies to back to reality here at Aintree. You might just hear they're selling horses behind us here today. I'm surprised you're not down there buying a few.
If I had as many jobs as you had,
I knew that.
You walked into that.
Walked straight into it.
Yeah, you did, Nick.
I'll just tee him up, you smash him back. We're going to try and find a few winners on the undercard, on the supporting card, I should say, on Saturday before the Grand National. We'll start, shall we, with the Liverpool Hurdle, which is the sort of Aintree equivalent of the Stayers Hurdle. Should we talk about Cider Burley again?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not putting him up. I mean, I'm so sorry, and everyone's going to hate me for his
this was your great
this
triumph,
year. I know,
Aintree.
and I really fancied him at 80-1, but then at shorter. If he'd have gone off much shorter, I'd have probably gone the other way, because I do think he's a bit of got a mind of his own. So. Not the side this time.
So you've been to the wedding, you don't want to go to the... I get it. Right, so who are you going to go for?
Yeah, probably a more crazy selection. Brewing Up a Storm is a horse who, I think Ollie Murphy's been quite prevalent about the issues this horse has had. His wind is not great. I think, obviously, you know, they can have the tie back, the tie forward, the hobday, there's all these different wind operations, so he's had yet another one. And I thought that made all the difference. I mean, I think he looked much better last time out. His jumping's got much better. And obviously Laura Collett, Olympic gold medalist, she's been in there, she's done a lot of schooling with a lot of Ollie's horses, and I do think, you know, it has and does make a difference. They're a little more careful. And again, huge price. I thought this was a really hard race. There was nothing at the kind of top that I thought that was a single figure price that I was really certain on.
Okay.
So I've gone big. Or home.
Brewing Up a Storm, always been a talented horse, but it's that kind of race, AP, isn't it?
Yeah, it is that kind of race. I'm a little bit like, you know, I know you think I'm with Sarah de Burley. You know, I kind of think he won here last year. It's a great thing for horses to win mentally, you know, and especially an older horse. Again, the fact he got his head in front last time, and he beat Florin Porter home by the Lee and all that. And I don't really know. Look, I'd love Champ to win because, you know, because he's a horse that was close to me in that, and he was a little disappointing the last time we saw him at Kempton. He was kept away from Cheltenham to come here fresh, you know, so you'd like to think he would win, but you know, it's hard to get away from Sarah de Burley. I don't see any reason why he won't beat those horses that he ran against at Cheltenham, and the fact that he won this race last year, he's got a lot going for him. Yeah,
he loves it here. He's in good form, and once you've got a horse back, why isn't he going to back up again? And Gordon Elliott believed that before the Stayers Hurdle. The William Hill Handicap Chase. Now,
what do you think, Leonna?
I see you passed the buck
do you know what,
straight
Nick,
away.
No, because do you know what? It's a near-on impossible race. You look through it.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you look through it. You know, I was looking at Midnight River, who's been done really well.
I
for
don't
Skelton's
think it
this
is
year.
impossible.
Okay,
Go on then.
Well,
You give us the winner and we won't bother doing it.
Oh, all right, just the class act.
Yeah.
Eldorado Allen. All he's ever asked to do,
good
this
form
poor
around
horse.
here. Yeah.
All he's ever asked to do is try and take on the sort of horses that were running on Thursday afternoon in the bowl, and now he's taking on, you know, worthy but workaday handicappers.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with Eldorado Allen. Say, as you said, he's been running much better races. Likes flat tracks, has ran well around here in the past. So, yeah, I'm good with that. Midnight River's a horse that's done well. He was a little disappointing last time, but if you go through it, the likes of Bow Port, you know, it was kind of fancied. Cheltenham was a bit disappointing. One that I thought might Gold Cup Bailey of Stuart Crawford, Star Jacobs for Simon Muneer and Isaac Swade. I thought might be one at a bigger price, but yeah, I'm happy to go with you. Eldorado Allen.
I'm happy to carry your bags for you.
It is an unknowns race. Like you say, it's a horse stepping back forward into, you know, Eldorado Allen needs to get back to what he was, and then he'd win easily, of course. But is he going to? I think I don't love Bow Port as a horse. I never have. Cooper's Cross looked like a really improving horse, didn't he? But then he bled quite badly last time, burst a lot of blood vessels, you know, so that's got to be a concern. Can you get a horse back that quickly after that? So I ended up on Canando Quato for Sammy England. Lovely yard, you know, they're a family team. That's probably more of a heart selection than anything else. But he was another one who was kind of going up the grades. And then last time, don't really know what happened. It was a 3-runner race. They can be muddling, can't they? And things. He didn't really look comfortable at any stage, which I thought he ran badly.
Well, you're going to get stronger pace.
Why.
You're going to get better ground.
He's had a wind off.
Yeah.
They've added the tongue tie. I assume Johnny's come in and said maybe he made a noise. So I think you could do a lot worse than him in there.
Yeah, Eeyore.
And maybe Gold Cup Bailey. I think better ground will help him, and I think he's good form on flat tracks. He won air and place a few times, so yeah, maybe him at a bigger price.
All right,
Selection,
Gold Cup Bailey.
actual selection.
Gold Cup Bailey.
Gold Cup Bailey, yeah.
Canando Quato, Eldorado Allen for me, and the William Hill Handicap Chase, which is the teaser for the big one itself, the Randox Grand National. A race that was won, can you believe it, 20 years ago by our fellow ambassador, Mr. Barry Geraghty, who was out on the course with us just a few days ago. All right, so it's fence 11, it's also fence 27, so different challenges both parts of the course. There's also a nice, pretty big ditch here as well. And Barry, this is where your greatest moment nearly turned into your worst moment.
Yeah, Jimmy Mangan didn't give me too many instructions going out on Monty's Pass, but the only thing he did say was he'd asked Paddy Kiley, who was a famous rider back in the 70s, any advice for a 23-year-old Barry Geraghty, and he said, don't be looking for big ones, just let him pop. It was too good, I had to have a go. So I gave Monty's a shove for it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom, we stuck in 5. Little short straight, picked up, popped it over. I landed on the back, and Jimmy's words came into mind, and I said, okay, Monty's knows more about this than me, so that was the last move I made. I was asking him to pick up here, and he put an extra straight in that, and he got out over it without touching a twig.
Clever.
That's how clever he was.
And sometimes, Nick, you know, no matter how good a jockey you may think you are, how good you are at getting them jumping, sometimes the horse needs to be able to be
Ownership.
much brighter than you.
Yeah, horse needs, like, they played their part in it too, but he would have put in a stride in probably less than a yard, so he was a bit special the way
So
he
for
did
the first time today, Nick, we've actually given the horses the credit for winning the Grand National, not either of us.
Well, Serenity and I are now joined by a very special guest, a man who's bidding to add his name to that famous honour roll and win the Randox Grand National 2023. He is, of course, Sam Twiston-Davies, and he rides Our Power. What an exciting feeling it must be, Sam, to actually go in there thinking, yeah, I can do this year.
Yeah, it's a very much it's always a kind of a privilege to ride in the National, but then actually have a good chance as well. Thought he was very good at Kempton, stayed well, jumped well. We kind of ticked every box we can. We've taken up to Lambourne to have a go there, over there, national fences, and all went very smoothly. So just a case now of trying to get a nice start, find a nice little posse somewhere, and hopefully have a clear round and do as best we can.
I'm always interested when I see those national horses having a school over the special spruce fences that they create down in Lambourne. Did he really take you into them? Did he really attack them, or was he quite careful?
Yeah, they're a nice size. Actually, Aintree itself would be a little bit bigger. But I think adrenaline is probably the biggest thing for any jockey. When you go down to the national fences of Lambourne, the horses are naturally a little bit more relaxed. You're in a normal environment. So actually, just to get them actually thinking about it is probably what's great. And then when you come to a race like the Grand National, the adrenaline is up, and it does make it a hell of a lot easier. The trickiest part is actually getting your own little bit of space down to the first couple.
And AP, we discussed it a couple of weeks ago when we were walking the course. One of the beauties of this is, however much you know, you don't really know.
You don't really know, Nick, because as Sam just said, the environment is different, the competitiveness is different. You may follow the wrong horse, you could get, because there's 14 going down together. You need that little bit of luck, and you need a horse that can really, no matter how good a jockey you are, Nick, you need a horse that can think for himself, because you'll go down and there'll be one fence at some point where you'll make a decision which isn't the right decision, and that horse needs to be bright enough to think for himself, and that's the beauty of the Grand National. And you do need that little bit of luck, and I know that it has changed a lot, but there's still that element of surprise and shock. Yeah, I think some of the better horses will definitely feature. I think it's whether we get another. I mean, it hasn't been that long ago since we've had a 100-to-1 winner. It hasn't been that long since we've had a big prize winner. But I think the horse up the top of the market will be big players.
Your horse might be toward the front of the market. Now, he's a careful horse. He looks after himself a little bit. Is that going to be in his favour, do you think?
Well, he's kind of very energy efficient. He sits behind the bridle, which wouldn't be ideal for your first couple of fences here, because you'd actually rather a horse who's kind of a strong traveller to be able to get into a position. But you actually only need to watch Noble Yates last year. He was quite cold over the first few. I think he actually, we get fed all these statistics to try and slow us down. I think he was the slowest horse to the first last year, and he ended up winning, and it's amazing the path he kind of plotted through. So it shows it can be done. Obviously you'd like to kind of get into your own little spot, your own little rhythm, but at the same time, as if you can just actually naturally get in any sort of rhythm, you'd be happy wherever you are.
Now, obviously, you've ridden plenty of times in this race for your dad, Nigel. That would give you great pleasure. But if you're not riding for him, I can imagine that riding for Sam Thomas, who's a great pal of yours, it gives you a huge buzz.
Yeah, Sammy's brilliant to ride for. You go out there and you have a plan, and you try and tell Sammy what you're doing, and he just nod his head and walk off, because he knows how much it can change and how quickly it can change. And it's quite funny. We had one runner at early on National Day, and Dad was quite keen to stay around just in case it did work out, so he was already asking for a lift home.
And you'll remember your first ride round here. I mean, hello, bud. What a legend he was. He was the winner over these fences, but he carried you to fifth. I mean, he was nearly as old as you at the time, wasn't he? 2010?
It was the year AP won, actually. I'd never remember it crossing Melling Road. I was just getting up sides Dennis O'Regan. I got up sides Dennis, and he said, "Long way from here yet, kid?" I was thinking, I don't care. I just couldn't wait to have a go. And obviously jumped 2 out. There's 5 of us up sides. Got a great photo of it at home, and I know AP was delighted winning. I nearly punched the air finishing 5th. I'd had so much fun.
He's in every one of your winning pictures, just about, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right, Sam. It was the right decision for me to win the Grand National. I think that was a good.
He gave you a lovely lead, didn't he?
Yeah. Good choice. So we were all happy. I like your thinking, Sam. But it is amazing how you change, Nick, from having your first ride. I remember I said to you when we were here a few weeks ago, I had my first ride from Iron Pipe in Chatham in 1995. Richard and Woody told me the chances of him winning the Grand National were pretty slim because he didn't think he'd get around. He did actually fall. I didn't care because it was right in the Grand National. It was right from Martin Pipe. The excitement of it was just an amazing thing. But as you go further down the line, you want to try and win.
Absolutely.
Luckily for Sam, he's got a good chance.
You have got a good chance on Our Power. If you weren't riding him and somebody gave you a free one, who would it be?
I think Noble Yates, watching the way he finished in the Gold Cup, it's a fairly obvious choice, but he's got obviously the course form. I like the way he personally races. He managed to get himself out of some trouble because there was, watching it back quite closely, I travelled up with Aidan Kong and we thought we'd have a watch back to kind of see where he went and why. And it's amazing, he went quite a brave route. He stayed in everywhere and sometimes he was quite congested. It was amazing watching him, how he negotiated some of the trouble he saw. And I thought that was what really stood out, was actually how well the horse and Sam Willie-Cohen actually negotiated their way around. And it just shows the horse is quite sharp and think as quickly as that is obviously what you'd be wanting to ride.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
May the force be with you. Sam Twiston-Davies, who rides Our Power in the Randox Grand National. Let's find out what some of the rest of our sporting ambassadors think here at William Hill. And we'll start with Mr. Hawaii 501 himself, Wayne Marble.
I've got it in my heart that because it won the cross-country chase at Cheltenham and I was on there and I'm going to be on again. The horse owes me nothing, so I'm emotionally involved. Del to work miracles.
My pick for the Grand National is Mr. Incredible, because that's what we'll all be calling Mikel Arteta when Arsenal win the title.
My pick for the Grand National is Cocoa Beach, because that is where I'd rather be.
This is Gareth Davis for William Hill, and I am picking Noble Yates to win the Grand National at Aintree.
So it's the Grand National. I'm going to go for Mr. Incredible. Need I say more?
So you've heard from all our other ambassadors. Now it's time for us three to put our collective neck on the line and try and find you the winner of the Randox Grand National this year. So let's just sort of take a little bit of a short list of the obvious ones, the ones that are on the front of everybody's minds. Corach Rambler, first of all, Leona. Are you for or against generally here?
Against. I think he's too short. I didn't like him last time either for the ultimate.
What, when he won?
I know. I'm saying before, before the race, I just didn't fancy him. He's just a horse I've never taken to. And surely for a national, he's too short. I mean, from a betting proposition, he's got to be too short.
All right, put a fork in Corach Rambler.
You're massively against it. You look like you're shocked.
Honestly, I can't have him necessarily to win, I don't think, because I think everything's got to go just absolutely bang on for him, and maybe that.
And that is not a national.
Tease me at that price. I want to see him win because I love the connections. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, they are.
Love to see him win. AP, your view on Corach?
Yeah, I think he's a big player. He went round racing Cheltenham. Like from the minute he jumped off, he looked like he was going to win. And he's £10 well in. I think he's a lot going for him. I think in terms of if you're a jockey and you could put your name in a hat to ride, he'd be very, very helpful.
High up the list.
Very helpful list. Got a lot going from connections. Know how to win a Grand National.
Yeah.
He looked like, in fairness, I actually thought they done a really good job training him. I thought when he ran at Newbury, in the air, he looked like an ideal horse to win the Welsh Grand National. Wasn't even entered. And it looked to me like it was a long-term, get his way through the Grand National, go back and win the race that he won in Cheltenham, which he did do. And I think he's been really well trained, and it's easy to say that I haven't won at Cheltenham, but he's come here and he's £10 well in. He has a lot going for him.
All right, let's just cluster last year's bunch together, shall we? Winner Noble Yates, runner-up any second now, had been third the previous year. Third place horse Delta Work. Go further back to Longhouse Poet, who tanked through the race and ran really, really well. Loads to come out of last year's race. Of that bunch, who's going to fare best this time?
Well, I liked Longhouse Poet. I said he tanked through the race last year. Was a little too keen for his own liking. I like the fact that he went and won last time. I love horses coming to races when they've got a one beside them. I think people don't give horses. I don't think people think about how much confidence horses get from winning a race. I think Longhouse Sport. I think last year's race, Nick, is a big thing. I think Delta Work maybe was a little far back last year and came home really well. You know, I think maybe ridden it a little bit closer. You know, having won again at Cheltenham the cross country, taking a similar route to Tiger Roll. You know, Galvin is a pretty smart horse. Don't see any reason why, you know, with the weights that he should reverse the distance with his cross country form. At Cheltenham, Noble Yates, easy to say it, but you look how this, you know, I don't think you can compare him what he done last year to this year because he was so well handicapped. You think the level he's got to, which is he is 19 pound higher. So looking at him last year, how could he not win? And he's not without a chance again because he looked like he had a bit of a flat spot in the Gold Cup and still came home really well. You think the Grand National, you know, he could win. You know, and is he a better class horse than what Tiger Roll was?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I'm sure he
I
is.
think Noble Yates is a difficult one to try and weigh up, as you say, well handicapped, but he was a 7-year-old winning a national. You know, it hasn't been done forever, has it? A really long time. So from a physical point of view, as in his physical attributes, in theory, as a 6, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, you know, they're not there. They need to be that bit older. From an experience point of view, not there. So that makes it last year all the more impressive, doesn't it? So out of those, he'd be my main fancy out of the aforementioned horses.
Okay, and then there's the horse who didn't run last year and are not Corach Rambler, and I suppose horses like Lamilos are the ones that are at the top of your mind because he won the race at Newbury.
Good traveller, looked like he looked like he kind of maybe might have blown up at Kelso last time. Looked like he's been trained with the Grand National in mind. Yeah. You just wonder, you know, this is a race that I think the way it's going to be, the way it's run now is you have to be a real proper stayer. And yeah, to win the race in Newbury, you think you have to be stayer, but to go that extra bit, I'm not, you know, he's there's a little question mark over that. Mr. Incredible, very talented horse, but quirky, you would know him, he couldn't, you know.
If he jumps off, and then will he waver about, and you know, your last couple of furlongs, you look, he won't stay straight. He's not going to get another horse take him to the line.
You have to think if he doesn't want to start, how's he going to want to finish? You know what I mean? So there's that little quirk about him. The big dog. Looks like he does. I mean, what a name for a horse.
He's actually quite genuine.
And he isn't, yeah.
You know, he's a proper genuine horse. Capitano won a grade 1 in Punchestown. Bit of class. Then you think to yourself, horses that have only had one run before the Grand National don't have a great record, but he's trained by Willie Mullins. I just think you go back to the Delta Work. Corach Rambler really well handicapped. I thought Gallard and Hill said the day the Grand National race came out, I thought I can see him win at Cheltenham and being really well in. I wasn't that impressed with him at Cheltenham. I've gone off him altogether. I didn't think I thought he was a bit lucky to win at Cheltenham. I think Delta Work, Corach Rambler, Longhouse Poet.
Okay.
Longhouse Poet.
You like Longhouse Poet.
Yeah.
So Longhouse Poet is your selection, and at a bigger price.
Not at a bigger price. I like. Do you know what? Another horse could run well. Vanillier ran well last time.
He'll do.
Won an Albert Bartlett.
We'll take him as a bigger price.
Haven't always looked at him as if he was a real chaser, but I was quite impressed with the way he ran last time. So, and he's, you know, and Gavin Cromwell. I think Vanillier maybe at a bigger price, but Longhouse Boat.
Right, whittle it.
Yeah, the Delta Work, I think the Delta Work, he got too far back because he made mistakes.
Yeah.
Which, you know, he doesn't, I know he's generally a good jumper, but he did make mistakes, which is what shuffled him back, which is why he ended up too far back. I mean, in the National, we need it to be, you know, a bit cleaner, which is why I kind of ended up on Lamilos. I'm not saying that a lot of trainers don't say they fancy their horses and that they think they'll stay and they think they're going to run a big one, but they have been very bolshy about this horse. He is a very accurate jumper. He's unexposed, which could be a negative as well in the National, but I think I was impressed with him. I mean, he's finished in front of Corach Rambler in the past. I mean, I think he's a horse who's got way, way more than what we've seen so far. He's a decent price. I like Lamilos.
Now, I think the top weight's going to win. And it's just hit me in a blinding flash of inspiration. Because I like the idea of Capodanno, a classy horse, but I'm just not sure he's quite quick enough over his obstacles. He's just a little too careful even for this. AP McManus's horse, any second now. Third 2 years ago when he should have won. Second last year when he wasn't unlucky, but Noble Yates was so well in.
Yeah.
And he comes here in blinding form.
Yeah.
And you can bet your bottom dollar, the more a trainer complains about how badly handicapped they are, They're not that badly handicapped.
Yeah, make a big deal out of it. I do think the one thing to note probably this year, which I would think we hope you both agree, and with plenty of the races here, and we'll have seen it at Cheltenham as well, you actually do now, I think, with new whip rules and things that are coming into play, jockeys are trying to save them on the way around. You've got a lazy horse or a horse that doesn't travel very strongly, you're struggling a bit now because you've got to be careful how much you can encourage them and GM up and wake them back up. But again, horses that make mistakes, you know, in years gone by, a horse makes a mistake, they land, the jockey gives them a live and says, come on, you know, get back into this. Got to be careful what you do there as well, you know, so you've got these horses now. I think if they're strong,
smooth traveller,
types,
strong stare.
Yeah, which I know you'd say that for every race, obvious, but more so now than ever for the whip. I think that's a massive tick in a horse's box if they travel that bit stronger, even in a staying race. Because a lot of the time...
The one thing about any second now, Nick, if you back him, you're going to be alive for a long way. You're going to think, my horse has got a big life chance.
Like that.
My horse has got a life chance to win. He'll get there. You can be sure he'll be in the first 4 or 5 no matter what, because he's got enough class to travel, as you want to say, and to jump as well and get that experience. And yeah, he wasn't unlucky last year. He got beat by a horse that was like absolutely thrown, probably the best handicapped horse that ran the Grand National for a long, long time.
And I think if anyone can anyone can pull this off, it might be Father Ted. It might be Ted Walsh.
Father Ted's.
What's your bigger priced or your shorter priced?
Well, the way the market is at the moment, I want any second now, and I still got to put Capodanno in there just in case on the class bet. So if it bucketed down at a stupid price, I said Fortescue the other day, but I don't think it's going to be soft enough for him now. He might finish 6th.
Not choosing enough class.
He might finish 6th, plodding on. But
I'm going Longhouse and maybe Vanillier for a big price.
Love it. Lamilos for you?
Yeah, Lamilos at my main selection. I'd half thought about putting Cloudy Glen up just because he's another one who I know.
It's all or bust with him.
I know, that's
You'll
exactly
know
what
after
I was going
about
to
3
say.
fences.
Sometimes he jumps well and you think, he's going to run a big one here. And then other times he puts absolute howlers in. So he's kind of, but I think I've just about swerved him now on Cocoa Beach.
Harry Cobden.
He'd want heavy ground maybe, that's the only thing.
Okay.
But he's a very good, careful jumper, travels well.
Harry Cobden to join the list of jockeys who've picked up Grand National Rise at the 11th hour and won, and it has happened so many times. Jim Cullity, Carl Llewellyn twice, and any amount of others. That's it for our Grand National Special 2023. We've given you so many selections that if you can't get one of those in the first 6, we're all out of a job. No, just a joke. We'll be back here next year for the greatest horse race in the world, the Grand National. Don't miss it, 5:15 Saturday afternoon.